is important to you. You have to do that,
Right.
that inner search as to do you really need to own a home. You need somewhere to live, which means renting or owning. But if you do come to the conclusion that ownership is important to you, you have to look at moving out of the area that you're in.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
That was the takeaway.
All right, thank you. You know, when I asked Paul to come, and I knew instinctively that because persons are at different points in their journey financially, you know, and some have kids, some don't have kids, some have homes, some didn't have homes. It really could have been a whole day seminar. It really could have been, right? But I hope that he was able to leave his contact information with you. One of the things I was really clear with him about is, if you're coming to speak to the mentorship group, please don't come at it from a point of view of, give me your money. I wanted him to just be a mentor and just to stand back and not to push, you know, turning over your checks to him and so on. And I said, that's really important right now. If he presented in that way, I'm very happy. I was away last week, sorry, so I didn't see it. But that doesn't mean you can't reach out to him. If what he said has resonated with you, if you perhaps don't have a financial planner, if you want to talk to him some more, I'm quite happy to reach out to him. That goes for any mentor or speaker that we have here. If they're saying something that resonates with you and you really want to ask them what goes on and you want to have a deeper dive, go ahead. I just don't want them up here doing a sales pitch. That's not what the program is for. Anyway, let me jump right in, because we're going to have another interesting day today. I'm just going to go through a couple of slides. Welcome, everyone. Land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we are gathered on the unceded traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Attawandaron, and neutral peoples. We honor their stewardship of these lands for generations. It is essential to recognize that while we stand here, we do so on lands that have been subjected to colonialization and still endure systems of oppression. We acknowledge that our ability to gather and partake in this program is a privilege not afforded to many Indigenous communities due to historical and ongoing injustices. As we engage in this Black Mentorship Program, we're committed to understanding and dismantling oppressive structures, amplifying diverse voices, and fostering a community that embraces equity, respect, and understanding for all. I'll skip this what is mentorship slide. You've started it around. I just wanted to remind everyone here to listen, learn, share. Talked about that a couple of weeks ago. You guys know the program outline. Up until November 19th, we'll meet here from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. This is our third session, so the rhythm. I'm hoping we can settle into a nice rhythm. November 26th, wrap-up event. I want to raise this again because we're assuming that the best time to have a wrap-up event is the Sunday right after. That's not necessarily true. I'll send an email around. Let me know if you prefer a different day, a different time. Or even if you want to make the wrap-up on the 19th with an extended session that goes till, say, 5 or 6 or something like that. Let me know. Program schedule. You've seen this before, 2 to 2:30 networking, topic of interest wrap-up. I've only added one thing here, logging of meetings for your weekly meetings. So it helps us as a planning committee if you're using those forms to log your interaction with your mentee. It doesn't have to be a thesis. It doesn't have to have pictures and flowcharts, just something that we can take away, go back to the region and say, this is what people are saying. And it's not us asking you, it's you just giving your honest opinion of, you know, the time was too long, the time was too short. I don't like Tim Hortons, I prefer Starbucks, whatever, right? If you have suggestions about the food, if you want music to be piped in, let us know. We take this back to the region and it helps us make the program better. And with that, I'll hand it over to Darren to give the introduction for today's speaker.
Hi, everybody. I don't know about y'all, but every time I think of career planning and choosing a career, it always brings me back to when I was younger. So initially, before I came to Canada, I wanted to be a chef. True story, I wanted to be a chef. I went to Philadelphia, I went to look at chef school, I did all of that. And then I went back to St. Lucia. School was about to start, and we were trying to figure out the money and everything to send me to chef school, and the date passed. So then I jumped into college anyways, and I picked up electronics just to do something. Then what happened after electronics? You have to work. because you're already here. You might as well work for a little before you go to university. I couldn't get a job. I did telecommunication sales. Then eventually I landed into marketing. So I started to market. I don't know if anybody from the Caribbean know like Lucasade, Ribena, Panadol, all of that. I used to market that. Eventually I started to do the sales and marketing for that back home. So I used to run around in a big Ribena berry, looking like that. They had a little fan inside of it, all of that. Then I came up here, studied manufacturing, didn't even get a job in that. I landed in QA. Then eventually again, I did my master's. All in all, over all those years, the moral of the story is, if I sat down and really planned how I wanted to do my life, maybe I wouldn't be jumping between all these different aspects. But today I can safely say, I teach in manufacturing and quality assurance, which finally, my education and everything is taking part in. So watching this, career planning and choosing a career, it hit home for me because I can see that if initially I had planned, maybe my trajectory would be different, but doesn't mean that a lack of planning didn't land me where I'm supposed to be. So I would love to invite Oluseun to talk about career planning and choosing a career. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
I was just going to call you. Thanks. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for coming. Thanks to the leadership for inviting me. I found it very humorous, and you've kind of gone there when this was the topic I was doing. Because if I planned, just quite unique, I probably won't be where I am today. So I am not talking or speaking or sharing like a lecture or a training. You see me grab this is because I want us to share. Because those of us from the continent of Africa and the Caribbean, one of the things that I think will be typical with us is this is not something anybody shared with us when we were growing up. Well, in my continent, the parents decided. So my journey will explain what I mean very soon. And you saw a bit of that in the introduction that was shared. As a first kid, there were only very few options: doctor, engineer, teacher, lawyer, accountant. Done. No questions asked. Find one of those spots or you're disowned because you're a useless child. That was what it was. But before I share my story, I want us to dream. That's why I have this. So if you were given a magic wand, blank check, no holds barred, no assumptions, no thoughts, what would you have wanted to be doing today? Or what would you like to do as that career, that path that you chose? What would it be? Yes, what to?
Supply chain for the oil industry.
Very specific. Okay, ma'am.
I want to be a pilot.
Oh, okay. See, that's kind of dream I'm talking about. Oh, yeah. Yes,
I want to be a fashion designer. Nobody laugh, I'm gonna say.
just maybe.
Oh, so when you have a MotoGP rider.
Model.
Just put moto, like M-O-T-O, GP.
That's what I missed. Okay, it was a GP.
Rider. Thanks for setting me up. Thanks for setting me up. My thoughts are pretty.
Can I be?
I was gonna say, I want to be the host of Jeopardy.
Yeah, that's what we maybe you get to be. That's not that right. I don't know, it doesn't matter. Yeah, let's say we don't survive. So, what stopped it? What stopped? So in this case, it might be what stopped this trip. Okay, let's do it.
Most of the supply chain tree to get into that oil industry, there's too many roadblocks.
Okay.
Supply chain is one thing, but to get specific into the niche of oil, for example, Trinidad have oil, too many big corporations blocking it. And to get into those corporations as a Black person, that's another story.
Okay, thank you. Highland.
For me, coming from Jamaica, we don't have many schools, aviation schools, right? There's one. And what you tend to hear is that, okay, the planes are not being serviced well. So you get a little skeptical about going to school there. So my dream is to do that here.
I almost mentioned my third slide. I'm like, quiet. Fashion designer. Oh, Zara, you want to say something?
Oh, I was just gonna confirm what Janine said. It is I also had that career plan, and the way for me to do it when I was in Jamaica was you had to join the army and commit for 5 years.
Yes.
Then they would show you how to fly. So I want to confirm that what she's saying resonates because I also investigated that.
But can I just say something? If you do want to fly, I have my pilot's license too. If you want, I have like every license. If you do want to fly, like just let me know and I can help you.
There we
figure out
go.
where you do it.
I'm not sure.
Not commercially. It's flying.
I grew up in Kitchener, and there was a lot of avenues, like people didn't want to be fashion designers out of Kitchener. You had to like go to New York, Toronto, and my parents were like, no, you're gonna go to law school. So that's what I did. Right?
That's something. How do I describe that?
Yeah, where I live, like I
just
grew up in Kitchener.
Yeah, area of rest.
Yeah, didn't have opportunity, so that no opportunity. Yeah, because again, they were college, and parents didn't want you to go to college. My parents were like university or bust, right?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, like, for me, like, as a kid, like, I always wanted to be a musician, like, play music, but then I had to realize that, like, being an artist is, like, probably the hardest thing to do because of the competition and the creativity and the level that everybody's trying to do the same thing as you. So I changed my career and now I'm doing music therapy. So it still influences my music passion, but I'm able to use it in a comfortable way that still serves me as a battle.
Thanks for adding that. Thank you so much. What did you do, Island?
I broke my hip.
What?
I broke my hip.
Sorry.
And they don't allow girls, so don't worry. It's only a guy, it's only a male sport.
Okay, there we go. And then.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm saying you can still do it, you know.
My family, no.
Oh, I'll go upstairs.
No, I'm kidding. I think most of it's in my head. I think kind of what Oluseun was saying about, oh, you can only do these 5 things. That still lives rent free in my head. This is not something that's a woman from Trinidad can do. That's kind of my own head, my own limitations. And in terms of like systemic, I mean, obviously, I say Jeopardy specifically, so I don't know I don't know what the hoops are in terms of getting work permits and artists like, you know, all that.
Well, I can safely say, based on the current host they have on the TV in Canada, I think you should go for it.
Yeah.
I want to go to.
Thank you so much for engaging that. I had to do that because the truth is, in every single one of us, there is a dream. There is something we dreamt of. There are things we're dreaming of. There are things we're going to dream. And all of those things are more hindered by one of my dreams. Oh, by the way, I had to do some research yesterday. I asked 3 people, which do you prefer? People who just tell you about something, those who tell you about something and give you examples, or those who tell you about something, give you examples and make it personal. So I'm doing the same research here. What would you go for, A, B, or C? Okay, the C's are it.
Yeah.
Everybody said C yesterday. So I'm going to do that today. That's why I did that. So one of the dreams that I wrote down, now I write everything, trust me. I didn't realize I wrote everything until recently. A colleague we're working with, why do you write everything? I was like, oh, that's true. I read everything. So that I'd written in my first year this was how I wrote it. Bachelor's, master's, PhD, marriage, no, work, marriage. Yeah, that's kind of how I wrote it. But truth is, I don't know how marriage moved from number 4 to number 2, but it happened. I say that to say, by that dream, I should have a PhD right now. I don't. Now, I still have that dream, and now I'm pursuing it. So we all have those dreams that life didn't allow to happen, whether that's life as in the loss of somebody, where I live, my background, an injury, family preferences. And I don't want to, like I said, I didn't come here like an expert coming to share what I am sure is correct or something I read in a book. I didn't share my life. That's kind of how I roll. And you've confirmed that it's okay to do that. So permit me to be vulnerable. Do I have your permission? Thank you. All right, this is what the dictionary says. This is not me. So I'll just do this for the sake of, I'm a trainer, I'm a certified trainer, and usually they will say, always define before you start, so that we can all be on the same page. And here's how I've written it. Career planning is about discovering educational, training, and professional opportunities. So what we're headed for is what opportunities exist. So could they be educational opportunities for those who care about that? Or just training opportunities because that's what we're passionate about, or professional opportunities. But the thing is, it's not just opportunities, and which is where I started from on the left. It's, do these opportunities align with your personal interests and passions and goals? And if I was talking to young people lower than age 18, one of the stories I will share, and I'm about to share it, even though you're not lower than 18, but I just had to put that caveat there, is that it was when I was about the age of 15 that my mom first asked me. She was downstairs in our house that is still there today, and said, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I answered, a musician. And my Nigerian mom shouted from downstairs to my dad upstairs in my language, oh, what did you know? Which means we have wasted all the money we spent on this girl. We've just wasted money sending her to private school because she's useless. So my father shouted, what happened, in my language? And she said, she didn't say she wants to be a musician. She mentioned one of the musicians that at the time was not popular. She said she wants to be Daddy Shoki. I didn't say that. And my dad came and said, what? Daddy Shoki, you will be a doctor. You will be a doctor. You cannot be Daddy Shoki. Not in my house. I will kill you. And I'm like, what did I say wrong? I was 15. And I didn't say I wanted to be Daddy Shoki. I said I wanted to be a musician. And I like to read music. I played an instrument. So I had classical in my mind. They had Daddy Shoki in their mind. 2 extremes. Like, how? So they both sat me down and they went, you will kill that music dream. You will not be a musician, not on our watch. Tell me now, you will not. I said, I will not be a musician. I will not be a musician. Wow. So the point is, nobody listened to my interests, my passions, but I didn't have goals then. But at least I had this too. And maybe they are just listening, so we kind of connect there, right? Maybe I will be where I want it. Now, till today, I write songs, I write poems, I sing. But I'm not a musician.
I would argue that.
Well, I'm not a professional
Doesn't happen.
musician. Is the point I'm making. So, for me, anyone that is thinking sincerely about career planning, where I usually want them to go before I go into my slide is, what are your interests, your passions, and if any, goals? Because until we identify that, there is no point looking for training, education, and opportunity. So we usually flip it in our cultures, the cultures that we come from. It's about what are the educational prides and the training, the one that put you in the class, and what professions sound top-notch. Nobody cares about our backgrounds. Absolutely, that's how I like to roll actually in training.
I was really saying I've met a couple of people, friends, family, people who actually care. And they said, look, Isaac, you can be talking about interest, we interested in paying mortgage. We want something that can bring money, forget about interest. It's been difficult for me to at a point from the beginning to say interest matter not anymore. So how do we leverage that balance?
I'll put it in the parking lot. Sorry, I'm a trainer, so my head thinks one every time. So let me create a parking. Now just for the internet versus money. Absolutely. Yes, yes.
I wanted to add as well. So I taught in the high school setting for about 8 years. And in teaching students going to the college level or university level, there were 6 formers. That's what we call them in Gambia. I had students who wanted to do music or something else, and the parents would say no. So just like what you were saying, lawyer, doctor, and such. And I had a student who said, I'm going to do this just because my dad said I had to be a doctor. And he spent 5 years of high school doing sciences, did 6th form, did sciences, went to med school, handed over his
Med school.
he went to med school, did it, and then at the end of it, he went and he did music. Because he said, I'm not interested, but they're the ones paying the school. So I'm going to do it just because they said I have to. And when I checked on him, he's doing music. So I'm like, what would be the point in wasting all that for 5 years?
When I think of all of the dreams and then some of the roadblocks, another roadblock I thought of is role models that look like you. And I think that sometimes we think things are out of reach because we don't see other Black and brown faces there. And I think sometimes our parents, I don't know if it's like there's a prestige about a job, but then they think, well, this path, everybody wants to do music because we see, Black musicians, but we don't see as many Black doctors, so we have to do this. And sometimes we just need to be in all the spaces. And then young people and parents can say, you know what, that's viable, because that's what our parents are afraid of. That's not viable. So when they see,
Another thing that, I sort of coach when I coach young people on is, getting within that field. But so for example, maybe that person who went to med school and then they still want to do music, there's might be something like, musical therapy with, you can use your medical background to do, or, I don't know, being a pilot, I don't know what else you can be, do pilot junior, but, just within that space, within that environment, because sometimes, and you can use myself for an example, after the fashion designer thing, wanting to do law school so badly, my parents insistent, get there, and that's not what I thought it would be, right? Like, so how do you leverage what you went to school for and now weave in your passions? That's also.
I'm going to write that down because it ties to one of the things.
I'll be related value parts. Before you lose your point.
Okay.
So when I look at the interest, passion, and goals, you can actually break it down into simpler terms with everyday life. It is your thoughts, the emotion attached to those thoughts, and the action. So everything there we've listed, a lot of them are the thoughts we had, but unless we have the emotional attachment to those thoughts to actually execute on them, it becomes difficult. Now, a lot of it, obviously, there's roadblocks with maybe location and all types of things like that. But there's the hurdles to actually overcome those hurdles professionally, even the music therapy stuff. It's like, yeah, you have the passion, everything, but unless you have that emotion to say, hey, I'm jumping that hurdle to continue pursuing it, it's like you have your career, and some people have their side hustle, they call it. But that side hustle is more of your career because you have more passion associated with it, and it becomes bigger.
So, very true. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Now I'll move on. The next set of things is what the books say, but I'm going to be applying it using my life because that's the only way it makes sense. What they say typically is that first of all, you do self-reflection and assessment. Now, I'm not going to talk about any of this because you can write this down. I'm going to bring it alive this way. I think and I might be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, that the cultures that we come from, one of the things we are not taught to do and that our culture does not enable is self-reflection. How many of us at the age of 15, 14, 13, 16 just stop and say, who am I really? What am I really good at doing? What can I use those things I'm good at doing to produce in my life? We don't. What really happens realistically, at least what happened to me, was as soon as we're done with grade, let me use a Canadian system, 6, I think in my middle school. And honestly, we're not thinking about what to use our life to do. It's about what's happening in middle school, what's the latest fashion, the latest makeup and the nails and all of those. And then it's what high school am I going to? So we just kind of move through life in motion, competing with people who don't care about us one bit. So what school are we all going to? How are we all going to get there? Nobody really stops. And let me flip this to those who are parents as well, for our kids to say, what is this kid good at? What do I notice? And how can I enhance this? I'll give you an example of my first kid. She's 16. At the age of when she was 5, we were living in the UAE. My husband had been seconded for some job. We were there for about 3 years. And every time we drove by, now, those of you that know Dubai, you know the kind of structures that exist in that city. Now imagine my 5-year-old is driving to Sheikh Zayed Road and he's saying, oh no, why would they put that there? If it was me, I would turn it this way and I would put it that way. And I'm looking like, where is this one from? And then one day, while she was 5, she said to me, Mom, I want to be an architect. And I said, you are 5, who is an architect? And she told me. And I said, why do you want to be that? She was like, I want to change some of these buildings. It doesn't make sense. And then she brought out a book, like a scrap paper that she had been drawing crazy buildings. Yeah. And I said, this one is going to be an architect. Now, my next question was, what country would be, can I afford architecture? So I began to think about that. But here's where I'm going. Grade 10. She's now in 11. Last year, she came home one day and said, Mom, do you really think I should do architecture? And I was like, oh, what has happened? I said, why are you asking? She said, my teacher said to me, so another thing that we deal with realistically, you are so good in drawing and in the arts. Why do you want to waste 4 years to go study architecture when you can go to a college, do one of the quick arts in 2 years and start making money? And I asked her, who told you to be an architect? She said, I told you. I said, good. What happened to what you told me? She said, no, that's what I can say. My teacher just said this. I said, go back to that teacher and tell her that at 5 years old, you told me you wanted to be an architect. She did, as God will have it. She ended up going to Shad. That was Providence, and I know it was. She came back from Shad, and she's on fire to be an architect. I say all that to say, just our environment, the people we speak to, our call, I saw raised somewhere, sometimes can change the paths that has already been designed and that we know. So I'm saying the balance to what I just said, which is identify that natural thing, that innate thing, that time of reflection revealed. Even when we know those things, life, and that's what you raised earlier, begins to ask questions about how much does it really pay to be an architect versus an artist. Another person said to her, why not just be a creative, what's the IT version of something designer, something like that, rather than an architect. And I said, girl, I don't care what you become, but I need you to know that you said to me when you were 5, you wanted to get. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. And that's one thing that we have to realize, that there are people in our environment, like think that we don't have the ability, your parents don't have the resources to send us to the schools or whatever we need to proceed. And let you know that their business, right? They will just go to my high school from the country. You know, because he's struggling parents. She wanted to be a lawyer. In 9th grade, the teacher said, no, your parents don't have money to send you to school for 6 years old. So she gave her like business subjects. She took them, but now she's lecturing at the University of the West Indies. because she had a passion to, to continue to shine and to show, them people that she can exceed. So we have to be, we have to let our children, people who we're influencing, know that, they don't look at if we have money or what people say about us. Just continue your dream.
I wonder about thoughts about, just think about, like, there's this new terminology that everyone's thinking about, like, not sharing your dream, like, keeping it to yourself, like people bad people are like, hold it, condemn it, or whatever. What are your thoughts on that in terms of like sharing what you're passionate
There are two sides to it. I would use a man called Joseph that I read about in the Bible. He shared his dream, got into trouble because of it. So from that perspective, some people have said, don't share. At the same time, I believe in the concept of helpers of dreams. She shared her dream to be a pilot.
Yeah.
Somebody says, I have a pilot license. So I think it will be about timing. Is it the right time? Is it the right space? And am I speaking to the right people? Because in this space, there's brotherhood, there's sisterhood. So it was easy for that connection to be made. In some other space, they kill it down. You want to be a pilot. How old are you? Where are you coming from again? What education do you have? Who do you think you are? Instantly, there is nothing that encourages you to go for. So sensitivity and discernment to know when and how and to whom will help that.
Thank you.
And don't stop.
I was going to speak to, I was going to say that one of the important things for us to recognize as ACB folks is that many people in the wider society will try to kill some of those dreams. And I have 3 kids, they're all grown up, but I've seen it happen over and over again, where a teacher or someone in the school system will kill your child, and you might not even know that this is happening. You're not even aware that you're speaking to the teacher with respect, with honor, and you're thinking that they're reflecting that back at the child. And I have heard so many stories of people who were surprised at the dreams that died in high school, that they didn't even know, and that the child was devastated in too many ways I can't speak to. So it's important to recognize that when you're an ACB person, the chances of somebody trying to shoot down your dream or your child's dream are higher than the other ones. You just have to recognize it. It is just facts.
So I think when it comes to sharing your dream, I grew up in the Caribbean, and you don't tell people your business unless you already finish it.
Yeah.
But in my growing up now and my understanding, is that limitation. We set our own boundaries. So if you don't share what you want to do and you don't overcome some of those barriers when you're able, it's actually more difficult for you to overcome it later on. Few of us overcome it. So I feel that sharing allows you to overcome the self-imposed barriers, which then allows the external barriers to impact us. Because a lot of it is on self too.
Yeah. Just add to that, because I don't think, because from a sharing perspective, right? Some people tell you you can't do this because they're also worried about you or about this dream that you have, right? Like I've had situations where, I tell my friends that this is what I want to do. And not because they have bad intentions towards me, but they're like, can you actually really do it? And then you start doubting yourself. I think it's important to kind of like recognize, if you've said that you're going to do something, yes, you're sharing and all of that. But at the same time, it's like, if you say you're going to commit yourself to do this, you should actually also have the back of your mind to say, you know what, it is a dream. There's a statement from CareerPlanning. I think that's one of my favorite things about dreams, where it's like, if people tell you your dreams are crazy, but if people don't tell you your dreams are crazy, then you're not dreaming big enough, right? So it's like when you tell somebody, you know what, I want to change the world, and they're asking you how, it's like, I don't know yet, but I know I want to, right? So I think that's like very important stuff.
Thank you. So we will do self-reflection, which will include what do I really want to earn? And what do those in that industry earn? Do I like to function one-on-one with people, or do I like groups? These are the kind of questions, because if I don't like one-on-one and I go become a therapist, okay, good for you. So what do I really like? What can't I stand? Right? You might want to do a personality evaluation. Now, I gave an example of the 16 personality tests because I really like it. That's the Myers-Briggs, the INFJ, all of the I's. Just to do and understand. Now, I did this less than 15 years ago, so not too long ago. And I remember the day I did it, I was crying. You know why? I'll share. I was crying because I'm one of those people that people confuse. I knew I was an introvert. Everybody was fighting because I said I was one. So I'll be at functions and they would do the test and I'll come out an introvert. And when I announce, when everybody will go, who is an introvert? That's a joke. But I was really confused throughout my teenage life, wondering, how come I'm somebody but I present as somebody else? And then when I did this, I realized what the problem wasn't a problem, was that all of the professions I was involved in, consulting, training, singing, being in the choir, any of those are very outwardly. And it was this that also made me understand that what introvert meant was how I expended energy. So if I finish something like this, will I go home and shut down, or will I go home and just pick on the next thing? So an extrovert finishes huge work, and there's a party 5 minutes after is the life of the party. An introvert finishes huge work and gets home and shuts down. And for a while, my husband could not understand me either, because he married someone who he had just attended a conference she emceed, because I used to MC back home. And then they got home together, shut down. He's like, you just hugged 500 people. This made us understand me, because those kind of people don't make sense. Because typically, people are one. For example, typical accountants. Introvert plus accounting. Check the box. Typically. And then dancer plus extroversion. Typically. But the truth is, that's not really how it is for majority. Majority have the mix where their career and their real life does not connect. But how do I understand if I don't take some of these tests? And then what abilities and strengths do I have? And that's why I said do your research. So having reflected and I have all the questions, my next assignment is to do the research and check what have people said, who is like me in that industry. So for example, the pilot, which racialized female pilot have you read about? To check what hurdles they had to go through, what challenges they faced, how they overcame them, and so on and so forth. Because usually our strength comes from those kind of people. A good example, and I've forgotten his real name, but his stage name was Frank Spencer. How many people watched that show, the English show? Some others do have them. That's it. That's the name of the show. He was an extreme extrovert that was acting in a very introvertish role. And he went through a lot of challenge of trying to convince people about who he really was, the point I'm trying to. And for me as a person, remember my background is chemistry. That was chemistry was because my father was still looking for a doctor. He wanted that doctor by all means. But I think right after I finished my bachelor's, I knew I wasn't going to do it. I just knew it. And one of the questions I asked myself was, I know I have power with words. I knew that very early on in life because an older woman, the power of older women speaking into younger people's lives. An older woman looked at me and she said, you're wise with words. I pray you don't lose it. So I wrote it down and I started using that to channel my life. But like I said, an older woman spoke into my life. I say that to say, I asked myself, I can't talk to cadavers and I can't talk to all of the things that medical students were using that I knew. And so it was going to be a struggle for you to put me in a profession that demanded full attention and using my hands more than my voice. And that was my struggle. So the question is, what research have I done? And so part of my research was, I went to one of my mom's friends who at the time started with chemistry, ended up with pharmacy. And I said, why that transition? And I found out her story was similar to mine. And she walked me through some of the journeys that I've walked. And today she's in the United States lecturing in a university, pharmaceutical chemistry. That's what she does. And she was one of those that helped me, that rescued me from my parents, the way to say, because she said to them, leave this girl. She's done chemistry. Let her figure out what she wants to do. So I had someone that could champion my cause, and that was very helpful. So do your research, very important. And then for those who actually are here because they are wondering, what do I do? And maybe now I'm going to start hitting interest versus money in some ways. Have informational interviews. When I came in only 6 years ago into this country, that was one of the first things I was looking for was, before I do any interview, is there anyone who understands that industry and is willing to interview me like they were the interviewers and give me feedback? And I'm grateful I had Hannah Brown, someone that I met through a friend, who was willing to do that, expert in my industry, consulting and training. And she would take the job description and tell me what exactly they were looking for. And she would spend an hour to interview me and then give me feedback. Usually very helpful. Job shadowing, of course. Again, if there's someone in that industry that I can just sit with and ask all my questions as they do their job without saying anything while they're doing it. Volunteering is obvious. That's what you're all doing here, asking for internships. Part-time work does not pay the bill, talking about the bill. But the reality is, I think most of the time it's a stepping stone to the real things that people want to do. We recently had someone coming from Manitoba, Winnipeg, came in as a volunteer to us in May. So came in March to Ontario, started volunteering. But I saw such excellent administrative skills in this young man. Excellent. I wasn't asking to do admin, volunteer, but I could see it. When we needed someone to cover for someone who was away for 3 months, we invited, are you willing to do this? He says, yes. Jumps in for 3 months. Guess what? Next week, I'm going to give him a letter of full-time employment, because those 3 months, I can let that guy go. He was so expert at being an administrator, even though that wasn't why I brought him in. So he's that kind of person that is asking questions about, why are we not having this kind of calendar? Why is this scheduling not da 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 da? And I had to ask, wait, what did you do in your other life? And I found out he was executive assistant and administrator to a technical director of a football team. And I had no wonder. Welcome. You're not going nowhere. I will look for the money to keep it. So sometimes that's how opportunities open up. So I'm sure someone is saying to me in my office, this guy came to Ontario from Winnipeg in March. You've given him a job. Some of us have been here, you haven't given them jobs, giving us jobs. Well, I don't know where you are. I don't know what skills you have. And so when there was opportunities, it wasn't you. But this guy is just excellent. I'll leave it out. And then find a mentor in the industry. That's my middle name, mentor. That is, me being a mentor is just me giving back. My life is a story of mentorship from when I was 6 till today. And that is the truth. It's not my parents that mentored me. They guided me. They gave birth to me, gave me food. But I know they were the ones that mentored me. I know the individuals, and I can mention all of their names, and are still mentoring me till today for those who are still alive. At least right now, there are 3 of them who have been in my life for way more than 20 years, who still check up on me. One still did yesterday. And the questions are, where are you now? What are you doing now? Why haven't you done that investment? Why are you waiting for this? Because they know that I can be very scared and careful. Typical me. I can be very scared and careful. So they push me and they help me know where to go. And then what courses do we need to do? Now, speaking about courses, I'm going to assume that there are people in this room who are new to the country and who are trying to navigate, what program do I do versus what job do I do? One mistake I have observed that people have made in Canada is they do like 10 different courses because the hope is that one of them will yield money. I think my conclusion, based on my observation, this is totally my personal research, is that we waste a lot of money trying to do these multiple things, and we will not reap back that money for a few years. Whereas if we have taken our time to stop and check what just happened.
I like that.
Yeah, same.
Something just closed.
That's not.
So we just took our time to just pause and just ask ourselves sincere questions like, what am I really supposed to be doing? What exists in the environment that I have found myself in? What am I passionate about? Do I need to change industries? Or do I want to stay where I am from, like what I came from? We might save a lot of money. I have a sister that came in 3 years ago. And before she came in, said to herself, all I know how to do is accounting. Like, she's not like me, I can be very versatile. She said, all I know how to do, if you move me from accounting, I'm useless. So a personal life accounting, a career accounting, her Instagram page accounting, mentorship spaces accounting. She doesn't do two things, do strategy and leadership. She's one thing. So she said, if I'm going to thrive in Canada, accounting. So what do I need to get into accounting in Canada? Before she came, did the CPA. She came on a visit because I think you have to be in here to apply for the CPA, the accounting thing. So she took a visit visa, came in, got all the information, applied, went back, did the exams, got a CPA after over 2 years, I think. So by the time she was coming in, she had a CPA. In 4 months, got a job, first job ever. I was paying her some 5,000 on arrival. Now I say that to say, now, and that was the mistake. I couldn't give you my story because I didn't have that kind of planning done. But I looked at that, her story, and a few others like her, and I said, actually, if we plan well, talk to the right people, which she did, know exactly what we want, which is this phase, we might settle faster than we often do. Is it always that straightforward for everybody? No. But does it increase the chances of settling? Yes. I think I have come to see it in many people who eventually decided, you know what, this is what I'm going to do. Yes, ma'am.
I was going to say that person or that kind of personality that will do 10 different courses, and I don't think you're exaggerating it because I've seen that. Sometimes what I think is at play is they're very influenced by other people and they will switch, and someone said, do this. You know, this is the next greatest thing. What you're doing is nonsense. They're very easily influenced. What you're doing is not going to make you enough money. Switch to this. So they go to this other thing. And then sometimes it's even the same person who told them to switch. Say, oh, no, not chauvinist. Do this instead. And they're just very easily influenced and just going after trends. And yes, it's just a longer journey to get to what you want. But if you know, like that slide that shows, what are my interests? What's in my passion? If you know that for yourself, then you can be steadfast. You can listen to counsel and you can say, no, that's not for me. I'm staying on this path.
And I agree with you. And maybe I wouldn't even say it that way because I could be soft. I wouldn't say that. I'll just say, I'll think about it. Typical me. When I came in, I remember people said to me, oh, your mom was a nurse and you were supposed to be a doctor. Go and do nursing. I'm like, I can't do this. I don't have the strength. So what did you do? I was in consulting and training. You will not get a job. I said, that's okay. And I'm telling you, that was a very hard decision. And I went to do the certification for being a consultant and trainer here. And it didn't make sense that I just spent 4,000 on that. Some people said to me, that 4,000, you will be in Conestoga, almost a nurse, you will make your money. And I'm so grateful I did not listen because I got into Grand River Hospital shortly after. And I saw that my pay as a middle manager at the time was way better than many of the nurses. So, but again, people don't know. We just listen to, here's what makes money, and we all go there. So I'm hoping that one of the things this would do is challenge us to stop and say, what am I really passionate about? What am I really supposed to be doing? And then go there.
Back to your slide about the self-reflection. One of my favorite things I've done in a couple different organizations was to do an assessment about your strengths. And there are tools out there to find out your strengths. And I like to say that once you know your strengths, like that's how you can sort of work alongside yourself, knowing what you are good at. And I like to say, or I start saying to myself, you can say a strategic no to things. Like that doesn't actually work for me. And it's okay to say no. So really focusing in on your strengths and find a tool that, or even ask people, you know, what do you think my strengths are? What have you seen? And people that know you throughout your life, you'll see the trends.
So this is one tool that I know that has often worked for me, and I was just thinking I should share that and say, as a person, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What opportunities do I have? And what strengths do I have? And then ask other people. People are usually willing to share the truth, to tell you exactly what you need to work on and what you need to make better and what you're doing excellently well. I'm rounding off in a bit. Now, if we have done all of this successfully, then we need to actually make that decision and write it down. I told you I'm a write it down person. And probably even paste it somewhere beside you. I shared with you earlier, I said, again, I'm about to be vulnerable. This PhD matter. The PhD dream did not necessarily start for me, truth be told, even though I had written it down. It started for my dad, who passed March this year. Because he is a PhD. And the day he finished his PhD, he literally came to me like this and went, So now I have a PhD. If you get anything less than this, you're failing. Can you imagine? And as his first kid, I really believed him. And I think the fear of being a failure is why I haven't done that big jump. But I think what then switched, I want to be vulnerable, that is now making me apply, because I'm now applying, was that profs were walking into my office and were asking me, have you ever dreamt of doing a PhD? So what has been stopping you? And then I'll share. And I realized, so it's taking us back to that first slide. And what had happened was something that I was supposed to do by destiny and by life. I had never pursued because I was afraid to fail, afraid I would start and not finish. I'm sharing all the fears that I had. Afraid it would take me away from my kids. I really love my kids. I have 4 of them. A 16, a 13, a 7, and a COVID surprise. Who is going to be 3 next month? So those are my fears. So I have to put all these fears down and say, you need to make a decision. Are you doing this so you start applying, or are you not? So you stop thinking about it, because I did not stop thinking about it. And unfortunately, like I said, he passed in March, and it was one of my pain points. Because even though I was afraid, I had always dreamt of him being at my graduation, so that I could take my certificate to him and say, there you go, I did it. Now, I will not have that opportunity. But here's the funny thing. His death, for some reason, has become a motivating factor. Because I kind of have a story to share on my graduation day about why I did it, but more importantly, why I dreamt about it, and then more importantly, why I eventually did it. Because now it's kind of like, you have to do this. You will have to do this. And I'm pursuing it. I'm now applying. I hope they take me. If they do, you will hear about it. So making that decision sometimes is very hard. I had to share a very hard one, because I shared some of my successes. This one, I haven't even started. So hello, it's really hard. But I think I finally have decided. I have opened the portal. I have my references, emailed, I've gone to them. Wes has sent my transcripts. The only thing I haven't clicked is the submit button, because my nature would like to read it 50 times to be sure that every comma is still there, since I have till January. But I've set November ending for myself, so that so that the computer does not crash. And that will be my excuse. I'm like, November 30, you have to submit. And then I can say, okay, I have submitted. I have to say that to say, even just that journey for me has been healthy. Because I'm no longer doing it because of my dad. I'm not doing it because a prof asked me. I'm not doing it because of the job that I do. I'm doing it because guess what? It's a retirement plan. That's my main goal, to do a PhD. And the first time I told somebody, she said, a PhD is your retirement plan. So I needed to retire because I'm going to use it for the rest of my life. No, that sounds stupid. People do PhDs at 18 and use it till they are 50. You want to, at 50, retire because of a PhD. Well, that's my own decision making and career selection. What's yours? There must be something driving you. So now I don't have a choice. I have to finish because I need to leave. Yes, ma'am.
No, you said you made that decision because it's a retirement thing. You mean financially, or you mean like just to do? Like
so both.
Oh,
what I want to do for the rest of my life, when I leave what I'm doing right now, is to be on the campus at my pace, at my time, nobody pushing my life. That's one. But more importantly, I will share. I think my life's vision is to be a consultant, is to use all of the multiple skills. I'm one of those, the proverbial 5. So there's this story in the Bible that talks about someone got 5 talents, someone got 2, someone got 1. I think I'm a proverbial 5 talent person who has multiple skills to give to people. I am being caged, and I have been caged all my life by one institution because I don't have what it takes to be a consultant. And I've been a consultant all my life, by the way. So I think my head tells me that with a PhD, I will have a tool to be that to the world. That's what I think destiny tells me. I don't know if it's true. So that's why it is retirement, to do the work, to live the life, but to also make the money. So all of those monies they were talking about at the beginning, that's when I'll make it, so that I can go to the Bahamas today Dubai tomorrow, on the way to stop in England, visit Jamaica and end up in Canada and then run away again. I'm hoping that will be it, but that's not to me. Because I like to travel, to be fair. Or it's to do work. That's the irony. It's not travel to vacation, it's travel to work. I love it a lot.
Just want to say thank you for pointing out that career planning doesn't stop when you're 23 or 34. That many of us are still looking for that next step, that next level. And it's just because you're 50 or 60 or whatever age you are, doesn't mean that you don't have to do career planning anymore. Right? And many of us, to be honest, if we take care of ourselves, are going to live into our 80s and our 90s. And so we think the end is close, but it's not really. And if you're going to look back 10 years or 15 years from now and go, I thought I only had this much. Now I realize the last 10, 15 years where I could have been putting the pieces in place. I thought it didn't make sense. Now I feel foolish. So I just want to thank you for pointing it out. It's not something that you stop at 30 or 40 or 50. You keep thinking about that next step.
Thank you for sharing that. I know one of my mentors in this, my crazy journey I just mentioned that you asked about is Brené Brown. So if for those who know Brené, it makes sense that I'm thinking the way I'm thinking. Because I met knew Brené 20 years ago. That's it. But in her old age, she's using research and she's just changing the books are now being written. Because there are no, I believe she has kids, there are no kids at home. So if I got married at 24, started having kids at 25, 26, I haven't had time to do the real things that I know I'm supposed to do. But they're about to go, especially the COVID properties. Yes. So that I can do those things. And that's why I don't believe in ageism. My head spins when I hear that because someone has gotten to X number of age, you don't want them to do what they're supposed to. I'm like, that's when their life starts. That's really, because that's when there's nothing holding them back and they can just run and live the life that they have prepared for. So right now it's all preparation for that time when they can fly. Now some people will start it early, good for them, but there are some people that it will be later. And in my culture, there's a proverb that says which means you can't look at my watch. If we are all running a race, you can't be looking at my watch to run. You'll be looking at your watch. So whose watch are you looking at? What's your path? What's your journey? And then you plan and you take action. This is the most important. Plan, take action. I just shared one of those that I'm doing. For those who are actually looking for jobs and opportunities, apply. They will come. Don't stop looking. And I said earlier that I was going to almost go to one of my last slides, which is this one. Because for me, if we do these big things, whether it's 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 or 60 or 75, we stay focused and we keep building relationships. I had to add that. Because I think there's a generation that is being lied to that we don't need anybody. I don't need anybody. I'm self-made. And I have not seen that self-made person that did not have people. So how do we treat people? This one is a big one. This is easy. But who am I bringing along? Because there are doors I cannot open myself. Either because those doors are very heavy, or I'm holding something that will hinder me from opening the doors. And I need a 90 to please help me open that door. Or Geraldine to help me close one door. So who are those people that will help us in these things, with these things that we are carrying? Because not all of us are carrying a lot. They're carrying a dream to be a pilot. Who is the person that is going to open the door to make it happen? And usually we don't know those because they don't look like it. We don't, in this room right now, none of us look like it. But there are people that come in and have badges like MPs and MPPs but many of us don't look that way. We don't wear the jackets, we just come normally. But the reality is, you, sir, might be the one holding the key to the next door that I need. Somebody told me many, many years ago that there are only 5 people from the person that needs to help me. So right now, I'm 5 people from the Prime Minister. 1, for example, because I saw your post, for example. So if I really, really, really needed to sit through the 1, maybe you're not the 1, maybe there's a 2, okay, maybe there's a 3. But there's always
Dawn, then you're just 2.
There we go. There's always someone. But the people we meet every day, how do we treat them as we stay focused? And then, irrespective of who we meet, the inner person counts more. If I don't stay encouraged, is this not the year that I should be doing speaking as much as I've spoken this year? And Andy knows what I'm talking about. Not only did I lose my precious father, first girls are daddy's babies, right? Trust me. Yes. In March, I then lost my mentor's wife. And it's important to define this because when you hear wife, it's like it's far. He was my mentor for when I was 6, because he's also my cousin biologically. But for some reason, he became my life mentor and has been so consistent. Now, when he got married, naturally, what do you think will happen? I'll get closer to the woman. So I became so close to her, even though he's my mentor, many times we are sidelining him and the women are connecting. And then 3 months after my dad passed, she decided to go as well. I'm like, 2023, what did I do? And for the first time in my life as a Black woman, I'm in therapy and grief share at the same time, because it was getting to be too much for me. But I'm saying to you, I keep taking one day at a time by staying encouraged. I don't give up. I can't. Too much is at stake if I give up. 4 siblings to support, 4 kids to support, a husband to support, communities that we serve to support. This kind of opportunity, I have never met many of you before. I am meeting you today, and that becomes another set of relationships that will lead me to mention it. So these 3 things for me will be my conclusion, because no matter the theory I share around applying for a job, meeting people, writing a resume, and all of those other things, I think the keys that hold it together is dreaming, number 1. So if I was going to put this into points, dream, don't just dream. That's the equals to this. And then decide what steps with human beings attached do I need. So a step was relationships, another step and relationships, and another step and relationships that would eventually take me to that finish line. But what's the finish line is the question I ask, because until we dream it, we can't achieve it. So see you at my PhD graduation. Thank you. I want to get my parking lot. Now, this parking lot question, the reason I put in parking lot is that in 2011, I was at the business school, attending a course in entrepreneurship, and I had asked that question. And the answer they gave me didn't satisfy me, but I think I like that answer now that I'm more matured and I've seen life, which is that the person said then, don't bother about interest, go make money. What mean of interest? Now, today, I don't agree with her, but I appreciate what Tucker was trying to say at the time. And my answer usually is this: I have not seen a single interest that does not eventually yield money. Throw it at me, anyone. Comic, comedian, writer, singer, scientist, manufacturer, farmer, painter, plumber. I have a friend who came into this country December 2 Decembers ago, and could not get a job. Tried everything possible, didn't get a job. IT professional, by the way, lives in Barry, didn't get a job. And then found out through a church person could learn to use his hands. Said, okay, let me try. Today, my friend paints, makes cabinets. There's nothing he doesn't do with his hands. Came from Nigeria, didn't have a clue what it was to use his hands. I tried to ask one day, God, how much are you making? Let's share this money. I was joking. Response: it depends on the week. Can be as little as 10,000 or 20,000 a week. Come and teach me how to use my hands. I don't need that kind of money. So my point really is, I'm looking for that thing that will be somebody's interest that will not make money. Steve Harvey and people like him. You know how much they make per show? So I haven't said that. Let's go interview all these people about when they started. At those times, it's never interesting. When I started consulting, my husband actually said to me then, I remember, because I left being a non-for-profit to go into consulting. He said to me, why are you earning peanuts? Are you a monkey? Because it didn't make sense to him. But I was saying, this is my passion. And then I went to do a master's in managerial psychology. So I just sealed my fate with being in consulting. And I knew what he was saying. I was earning nonsense. But I was passionate. A part of what kept me there for 10 years, by the way, was that even though my take home was funny at the time, every time we travel, that's why I like to travel. So we travel to Dubai, to Spain, to the US, to train, to Ghana, to South Africa. Part of our ESTA code wasn't just money, it was clothes. And that's when I learned to dress up. I know. So they would take us to Marks and Spencer and all of those and say, sure, you have $500. I'm like, oh, here we are. So that was the motivation for me. So even though I may not have money to eat tomorrow, I was going to have good clothes to go train tomorrow. So I would go. And I did that for 10 solid years. But I look back today at what I do, and I realize the lens I wear is because of those 10 years. And I'm earning the money. So I think time is something that will decide, will I follow my interest or will I just follow money? If fulfillment is important, then I'll follow my interest and know that money will follow. It always does. But if I follow money, one day I will still pursue those interests because the side of my heart would always knock and say, what are you doing about this? Especially if you're one of those that have 5s or 2s. And then the issue of using the degree, I'll be an example of that. I said in the summary I sent to Illinois, I have a bachelor's in chemistry. And honestly, it was a useless course to me as far as I was concerned. But today, and every time I look back, and I guess I didn't realize in time until my CEO, when I was in consulting, said to me, your mind is so analytical. And you're very different from the rest of my team. Now, I was the only science person on his team. And I said, what do you mean? He said, the way you answer my questions is different. And I know that chemistry is very analytical by design. So it looked like I was making my parents happy. But the reality is that chemistry gave me a mind. I remember my project, my graduation project. You have to be very analytical to take something that is supposed to be a plant or take the chemical version of it and find that they are the same in the lab. So it's forced me to be that way. So I think for those who already have found themselves in places they don't like, there's a lot that those things by design have that can be used anywhere. But for those who have the opportunity to write their stories from the beginning, in the beginning, I've just shared the ways that it can happen. Together, one thing I know is this, another proverb in my language. I think in Proverbs, because I lived with my grandmother for some time. She lived with us. And it is that the sky is big enough for all birds to fly so that they are not colliding with each other. The world is big enough for all of us to thrive. Competition is unnecessary. I look forward to seeing you at the top. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You know, sometimes when you come to a place and you listen to somebody explain their life, explain what they've been through, and then whilst you're listening, you realize there's a lot you've been through. Going through that list and being from the Caribbean, no matter where you're from, and you have the parents that say you have to go to university, you have to do all these things, and you start to pull away from that and you realize everything is working differently, or your life, what you think went into a different way. But in the end, you found that passion, you found that goal, and you take the action to it. To me, that's the biggest blessing in life, no matter what it is. So thank you very much, Oluseun, for explaining all of this. It's always a blessing to have somebody be authentic and be real with us. Thank you.
All right, almost at 4, so the one thing I'd like to do is remind you of the topic for next week, health and wellness. I'll send another detailed information out, but FAR Alliance will be speaking this week. And I won't take up any more of your time because I know I'm not the most interesting person in the room today, which is quite okay. So connect with Oluseun. Someone said earlier that her name rhymes with solution. Connect with Oluseun, grab some food, connect with your mentor, mentees. Oh, if you are supposed to be picking up gift cards from me, where do I put them? Thank you, Tamara. Just come up to me and I'll hand out the gift cards. I think I have Tim Hortons and Starbucks here today. Just, you guys figure it out. I'll be here. That's it, I'll say. Thank you for attending. And yeah, you're free to go or stay. We'll be cleaning up until 5 p.m. So we're not pushing you out the door. We'll just be cleaning up and organizing. as you interact. Thank you. All right, let me, who's got the gift? Okay, so cards. Who said?
Oh, yeah, one for me.
Starbucks?
Yes, please.
She wants to be.
Thank you.
All right, I'll just make sure.
One just.
My birthday is second to Thursday.
I've got gift cards. Sure, Timmy's or Starbucks?
Yeah, I think I'm